We're going to be talking about the best length for AR-15s, and we have a few here on the channel. I won't say this is all. You can cut your barrels to whatever you want them to be cut. These are... Make sure to follow all laws and regulations associated with your state or province. Small disclaimer. Today on Basement Operator, we're going to be talking about, does size really matter for your average guy?
No.
We're going to be talking about the special use cases for each of them, and at the end, we're going to kind of conclude and what our opinion is on the best one for the vast majority of people to buy. Because each one of these here
has an application.
Has some legal caveats to them, which is very much an important thing to consider when buying them. Each of these are going to have a different use case, and we're going to conclude on the end. Now, with this being said, this is not going to be a very super technical video. There's going to be a lot of FUD lore involved in that right sparking.
Oh no, can't be doing that.
The whole video is pretty much FUD lore. Hopefully we'll arrive to some
awesome conclusion that's probably an opinion.
Yeah.
If that's okay.
It's whatever. And keep in mind, we have no real professional use out of any of these. We are just your average everyday dudes that shoot an absolute. Before we do, we want to give a big shout out to some very important people. Most importantly, us, basementoperator.com. You can check out all of our merch. We have awesome stuff there, builds and what, Hunter? Oh yeah. We have new merch there and builds and all of our affiliates there, so go check us out at basementoperator.com. First things first.
Shorty.
We have the Shorty. Now this one is the Stag. This is a 10.5. 10.5 is a very common pistol for 5.56, and that's another thing we're going to be talking mostly 5.56 here, so keep that in mind. One of the things with a pistol is you can't actually have a stock on it. Now you will see here that this one has a B5 stock. This is because this is an SBR.
Short barrel rifle.
Short barreled rifle. And that is kind of one of the first things I want to talk about. You know, are these rifles useful? Are they functional? And, you know, all that. Will it be illegal for you to have? The 10.5 inch is a pistol. Here recently, there's been a lot of stuff going on with the ATF.
With the pistol braces.
With the pistol braces. As of filming this video right now, you are allowed to have pistol braces on your AR-15s. They're not considered a stock at this time. That has been going on for forever. And that's kind of the biggest downfall of owning a pistol, is all the legal ramifications. And if you're not keeping up with a lot of it.
And a pistol's technically anything under 16 inches.
If you're not keeping up with it, it could be kind of a ticking time bomb waiting to happen, especially if you just kind of like buy it.
Yeah, if you're a first time buyer, I don't know if I would step into that right off the bat.
Now, with that being said, and like the legal warning of it, if you're all right with keeping up with it, staying up to date with it, 10.5 inch 5.56 pistol is a really, really good pistol to have. This one's a Stag Arms. This one's been very reliable for me.
Had it here for a long time.
Had it here for a long time. I think 3 years now, give or take. You know, I've never had any cycling issues out of it. It's been very accurate. It's a good little short little rifle. I can say rifle.
Is it? This one?
This one is a rifle.
What would you use it for?
So,
what would be the reason to do
my
that?
use case for this would definitely be a home defense, more of a tactical scenario. I wouldn't say this is like the do all be all, but you know, if you want something that's, you know, easily concealable, and here, you can put a wall tack on it and it can get really small. You can flip this thing down. Exactly.
Or range toy. Them things are just fun to, them being lighter, you know, if you had, you know, your significant other, need something a little bit lighter, that'd be fantastic way to go. So
you might also ask, what are the trade-offs on maybe a shorter barreled rifle versus a longer barreled rifle?
Velocity.
Velocity is the trade-off. You might ask, what does that matter? Well, when you start to cut off velocity, the bullet starts to slow down. It really can't travel as far.
It'd be less accurate at longer range.
So we're going to kind of cut the statistics on that there. I don't know all the different velocities.
Yeah, we're not going to get into the weeds.
Because ammo type means a ton. How great your barrel is, your specific.
How often you clean your barrel.
Exactly, which we don't do. Hey, that's the general gist of, you know, your shorter barrels. You lose your velocity, but you gain mobility. Compact. I won't say you gain mobility, because any of these with the right person can be very versatile and useful. I would just say it's easier to pick up when you're moving between doors or, you know, going through your hallway. And I'm not saying every random person's going to be, you know, moving tactically through their house, but
I can hear him now. I wouldn't use 5.56 for home defense. I have 9mm.
Exactly. So, I mean, go ahead and comment all you want.
If you're in a blackout 9mm, anything this size, it would be good.
I'm going to go ahead and say you could probably lump the Daniels Defense 10.3 in there with like the same thing. Somebody's going to go in there, oh, the 10.3 is so much better than the 10.5 for some stupid reason, I shut up.
You don't want a 7.5?
No, that's one thing. I wouldn't go lower than like a 10.3 on a 5.56. You run into reliability issues there. So next, as always, we have a saber. Now this is a 14.5. I'm going to lump the 14.5 and a 13.7 kind of in the same group. This is where you start getting into your pin and welds.
Yeah, because if you didn't do that, it would technically be a pistol.
Yeah, or an SBR. The good thing about these are you get, and like with this one, this is a PSA 14.5. It has a pin and welded brake on it, which forces it to that 16 inches.
Makes it permanent.
Makes it permanent, which makes this a rifle by definition. But if you compare it to something like this actually like full 16 inch, you can see there is a, well.
Boy, them stocks, I tell you what.
You can see that the 16 inch sticks out just a hair more.
Just a hair.
So you get a little bit smaller package with the 14.5. Some of the drawbacks of this are your pin and welded flash hider. Another drawback, and we talked about it when we did this video, when you get a pin and welded rifle, there's not really any swapping any gas system or pretty much anything on your upper receiver.
Yeah, I would say your everyday Joe's not going to have to really mess with it.
No, unless they want to start Legoing it out like you did with yours.
Well, yeah, but I didn't change the rail. I didn't have to do anything.
No, but Hunter changed the rail on his.
That's true.
It's one of the first things he did. So I guess it just depends on if you know what you really want.
If it comes with the handrail you want, you're never going to change it, then
or if it comes with the brake you want.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are getting into suppressors.
Yeah, because if you had that pin and welded with a regular like 4-prong, and then you say, oh, I'm going to get a suppressor, oh boy.
Yeah, you're not going to be able
stuck.
to. So like when we got this one, this is this one came with the brake for the dead air. So it's pin and welded on there. We use this dead air a lot. It's perfect because we know that's what we wanted, right?
So what's the application for this?
The application for this is basically a 16.
Yeah.
But for somebody that wanted a little bit smaller package, wanted something that they didn't have to SBR, because SBRing it's not a horrible process, but you still have to give your fingerprints to the government. You still have to let them know, this is, hey, my rifle. And a lot of people don't want to get involved in that.
Yeah.
Which I completely understand. If you're already getting a suppressor, that kind of doesn't
matter because you're
already doing it. But this is definitely for somebody that just doesn't want to get involved with the SBR.
Just wants it a little bit shorter.
But there are some things, I didn't really bring up about the SBR. If you get an SBR, anytime you transfer or like move it between states, you have to file paperwork to move it. So like with this saber right here, we took it to that night vision class and we didn't have to worry about it. But if I would have taken one of my shorter SBRs, I would have had to file paperwork that I was taking it to Ohio and then wait for the approval
to do
it. And that's just unnecessary crap. And I didn't really want to take a 16 inch. I mean, it would have been fine, but I wanted to take a little bit shorter because I did like the compact size. We weren't shooting really long range. And I just really enjoyed the 14.5 platform.
Yeah. If that 1.5 inches is that big a deal.
Yeah, and I don't see any performance drop off, really. I mean, if you were chronoing it, you might see a little bit, but for your average everyday person, you're not going to see that much difference between a 14.5 and a 16.
Most guys aren't going to tell by looking at it. You got to hold them side by side and like, oh, okay.
Now if you get like a 13.7 and you have a pin and welded brake, that brake's going to be a long one. Still, you won't be able to really tell that big of a difference anyway, right?
Yeah. I understand why people would want them, but I don't see the point. It's 1.5 inches.
Right.
Like that's not that big a deal to me. It might be to some people, but I just don't.
On his record, not in his head, I mean, it's a pretty big deal.
There's not a lot to gain by this. I see the gain from this to that, but not from this to this.
All right. Well, that being said, dive right on into the next one.
The old 16. This is what you're going to see
everywhere.
Everywhere. When you go buy an AR off the shelf at any sporting goods or firearm store, 9% of them are going to be this guy.
Or pretty much these two.
It's going to be either a 10.5 pistol or a 16-inch rifle.
You go in anywhere, you're probably looking at 16-inch rifles. There's a lot of good things about 16-inch rifles. A lot of people get caught up on the internet of seeing people with like shorter rifles or longer rifles, and I really think the 16-inch in terms of like the influencer space is kind of neglected.
Yeah, because everybody wants to go.
Everybody wants something different because these are so common. But there's a reason they're common. All right.
GI.
Well, I wouldn't even say
What's most common?
Yeah, just because it's right on the line of legal,
Yeah.
full-on felony.
Depending.
Exactly. So this skirts the line. It gives you as small of a package as you can get without, you know, having to do any unnecessary paperwork and spend the extra money. Are there any really downfalls for the 16-inch that you can think of, Sparky?
If you were, like I said, you wanted something as a truck gun or CQB, you can obviously do it with this. People have been doing it for a long time. But, you know, the barrel length is, you know, for getting in and out of a truck or getting in and out of a door or something like that, 16 can be a hair long.
Not as optimal, but definitely doable.
But it's doable. I mean, this is what you're going to see most of the time. So people know how to, and you just got to know how to run it. But also the nice thing with 16, depending on how you hold the firearm, I feel like I keep my left arm fully extended. So I like having 16 because I can...
For the rail space.
For the rail space. And you guys said you got room for your peg, you got room for your lights, you got room for all that kind of stuff.
And that is something I kind of glossed over with these two.
You lose space.
You lose rail space. So as you can see, this one, there's a lot going on. We have our PEC, we have a Streamlight Pro Tech right here, we have a pressure pad. Sparky likes to run his like full C-clamp out. I'm more of a like halfway up the rail type person. And I think that's just from running like shorter rifles.
Yeah.
Because, you know, like this is about the same as running like
same
that right
style,
there.
Same grip.
This has a ton of rail space and it's really, really convenient. Now, when I had this one set up like this one, I was running out of rail space and I was having to get creative with like my,
Your sling mount?
My sling mount. I was having to get a sling mount to go on top instead of run it to the side because I was going to run the light right here, but that pushed...
It gets complicated.
Yeah, it gets more involved, whereas a 16-inch, you have a ton of rail space. Hunter likes the full 15-inch rail. I'm more of a, you know, 13.5. I really like the shorter rail. I just like the little bit of barrel sticking out. I just think it's aesthetically pleasing. I don't really think it matters too much.
Trim the tree and makes the tree look taller.
Trim the bushes makes the tree look taller.
Yeah. Well, you trim the tree and the tree's not taller.
It just got skinnier.
The 16 inch is kind of the do all be all.
Yeah.
You know, it provides you with decent velocity and I mean, there's not...
This is what everything else is judged off of.
I wouldn't say that.
Well, I mean...
I wouldn't say it's judged
This is the standard, these are the deviation. So everything's based on...
Nah, the standard's a 20. Be careful.
Well, technically...
Be careful.
We said AR-15 and M16.
Oh, man.
Ooh, 20-inch pencil barrel, look out.
So, I mean, and you could still do all your shooting.
M4, you know, whatever.
Shut up.
Whatever.
I think an M4 is like 14.7 or 14.5.
Evil black rifle.
I don't know. Anywho, the 16 is kind of the easiest to get into, and I don't think people should shy away as much as they do. Moving on, the big boys.
Bertha.
Yeah, Bertha. Easy there, bud.
Slick.
This is the DD Mark 12. This is kind of a little bit longer. This is when you start pushing into your marksman rifle-esque type things.
Reach out there and touch somebody.
A lot of the 5.56 platforms, if you're looking for longer range rifles, do stretch to that 18 to 20 inch barrel. There are some things to be said about that. It does provide you with better velocity and allows you to push your round out there a little bit further. We're not talking hundreds of yards further, but a little bit further. One of the drawbacks is you do have a little bit longer barrel. It gets in the way a little bit, but it's still completely usable for all applications. If you wanted to clear rooms with this, you could clear rooms with it. It's just not as convenient.
It's just a little bit harder to swing it, but it'll do it.
We're not saying it's not possible whatsoever, because it definitely is.
It's just not meant for it, but it'll do it.
And the way we have this thing set up, we have it with a longer range optic on it. This is the SIG Easy 6 BDX, and we have a little side mounted red dot. This mounted red dot helps with that closer range shooting, quick action, just, you know.
Quickly acquire a close range target.
So that's why we're saying this definitely can be used for that. But if you're looking for like a good predator varmint gun where you're going to be shooting a little bit further, this is where that 18-inch to 20-inch barrel really shines and, you know, helps out.
It's meant for.
Now,
you can do it with
You can still do it with the 16, you can still do it with the 14.5, and you can still do it with the 10.5. It's just, this will do it slightly better.
Same way that one will do CQB better than this one.
Exactly.
It's the same thing.
Exactly. It's the same thing. Okay.
Just all on what you mainly gonna do with it.
And that brings us to the point of the video. We are making this to tell you what we think your best everyday Joe rifle is. And it's for sure going to be the 16
16.
inch.
So most common, probably, I would say, probably the more affordable option as well.
Yeah.
Because since there's more of them, more companies make a 16, you know, high supply, so they're gonna be cheaper.
Whereas like your little 10.5 pistols. Now, obviously, all this brand depending, but if you get all the same brand, you'll notice that the 10.5s are a little bit more expensive. Mm-hmm. You know, your 16 inches, they're everywhere, and pretty much if there's an AR-15 manufacturer out there, they're making a 16 inch. So if you want to get super cheap, you're buying a 16. Like if you want to get the cheapest rifle,
$400 PSA, here we come.
You're getting a 16 inch. That's not the same if you're getting like the 14.5 pin and welds. Those are special. Those are going to be a little bit more expensive. 18 inches can be crazy. That one is crazy. That's ridiculously priced. Just because of the name. Radical makes a good 18. We have one of those. Diamondback makes their 223 Wild that they just came out with. Go check out Diamondback. I have a code there if you want to use that. Saves you, I think, 10% or something like that. We like Diamondback rifles a lot. I'm surprised there's not one out here, honestly.
I tried to bring it, he wouldn't let me.
So their 18-inch rifle it will be a little bit more expensive, but you know, it is what it is.
But if you only have one,
you only have one, we definitely recommend getting the 16-inch. Don't get caught up in all of the influencer marketing out there that are pushing you towards, oh, you need to get a 14.5, you need to get a 13.7 because they're cutting it back. You need to get a 10.5 because it's a shorty. You need to get a nice, crazy Marksman rifle because that 18 to 20 inches really just kicks the living shit out of a 16. You don't get caught up in it. The 16 inch is perfectly fine rifle. It's easiest to get into and it'll do everything you need it to do. And I will say once you get into the 16, you get very comfortable using it, then you can start branching off.
Yeah, then buy an 18-inch upper, slap on it if you want to get into something longer.
Yeah, or get you a pistol brace and
if those are still legal at the time.
Yeah, or just SBR and dive into the shorties because they are a blast. Do not get me wrong.
I love mine.
They're fun. Right? But I think for everybody's first, and this was my first.
Yeah.
And your first, and his first.
16.
Isn't that right, Hunter?
I might have been 17 at the time.
All I'm saying is don't get lost in the marketing on it all, because a 16-inch rifle will do you very well. It'll do most use cases very well. It'll hunt well. It'll do indoor shooting well. It'll do all of that well. I won't say it's optimal for all of it, and I won't say it's bad for any of it. But I will say it'll do most of it well. So I think do you have anything to add to it?
No, I'd get 16 and start with it. And if you figure out you need a shorter one more often than not, then get a shorter one.
Yeah, and like if you're doing a lot of CQB stuff and you find yourself like clipping barrels or having to really shove it back above your shoulder when you're going in through stuff, and you're like, man, I'd really like a shorter rifle, go for it. You know, or if you're shooting a lot of distance and you're like, man, I need a little bit more velocity on these rounds, I'm just like right there at it.
So close.
You know? Go ahead and upgrade. You know,
go for it. But you know, if you only have one,
that 16-inch will do you good.
That's right. I'm getting wet.
Not the good kind either. We'll see you on the next one. As always, take someone outdoors. Peace. And finally, thank you to Mom for letting us play in your basement.
That's right.
With all of our toys. So,
not my mom's basement.
Your
mom's basement.